Hey, everybody, welcome to the Not Move podcast. We have a special guest with us today. His name is Neil Schwartz, and he's the president of SBR Net Inc. He has over 25 years of marketing and consumer research experience focused on sports, fitness, and active lifestyle categories. He is regarded as an expert in the trends affecting sports fans across both team and individual sports. He has a podcast called the My First Job in Sports podcast and is the co founder of the annual Get in the Game Sports Business Career Conference. We're a relatively new podcast, and it's such an honor to have you with us today, Neil. Thank you so much for your
Absolutely.
time. Could you please tell everyone a little bit about your background?
Sure. First, thanks a lot for having me on as a guest. I really do appreciate it. As you started to say, I am Neil Schwartz, president of SBR Net, stands for Sports Business Research Network. I actually have about 30 years of experience doing research. I was doing research and data before data was cool. My daughter likes to call me the oldest living data nerd. But, I am all about the data when it comes to sports. I've been in sports for 25 years. I've had the opportunity to work with leading brands, retailers, um, teams, leagues, associations, not for profits, really anyone that's involved in wanting, to get involved in sports or being in sports. Look, data is everywhere and people need data in order to be able to, develop their revenue plans or growth plans or marketing strategy. So, I'm really all about the data. My company, SBRnet, we are primarily focused on data in three categories. One, we do our own proprietary study of sports fandom, covering 23 sports across 65 separate categories of data. We also have sports participation data, as well as equipment sales data, footwear, apparel, equipment for all of those sports that people like to do. And really we're really, a good source of data for really anyone in the world of sports.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I like to talk about sports betting, and I focus a lot on data. So
Sure.
I totally understand how important it is, not just for myself, but I'm sure just as much, if not more, for you. Um, Now, I heard that you mentioned that you focus on sports fandom.
Yes.
What sport or sports are you seeing the most growth in, and which ones are you seeing a decline in regards to sports fandom?
Sure. Hold on to your hat for this response. But the number one growth sport when it comes to gambling on sports is women's sports, and specifically the WNBA. It's just really a little bit interesting to me. Look, while the NFL, there's no question that the NFL is the granddaddy of all, leagues, teams, whatever you want. When it comes to gambling on sports, they've got a great percentage of their fans who gamble. But when it comes to where the growth is really in women's sports. We were seeing some nice growth also out of the auto industry, automotive racing, specifically Formula One, but that's toned down a bit, as has gambling on soccer. Now, one of the reasons that I would hypothesize is that those fans have been gambling on sports for quite a long time.
Right.
So, they maybe it's not quite as new to them, but the number one sport we're definitely the biggest incremental gain is coming out of women's sports.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I
Yeah,
can see that. I
awesome.
can see that with the spike and surge with Angel Reese and all the females that are coming
Caitlin
into that.
Clark.
Caitlin Clark,
Yeah.
yeah, coming in there and taking over that sport.
Yes.
It's drawn a lot of attention. I know when we've had episodes come on here, and every time we do that at WNBA, it's a spike in the female audience. It's awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah. We're just seeing that all over the place, whether it's women's professional soccer with the NWSL or I think it's called the WUSA. I get these mixed up a little bit. And also, but we're also seeing it, even in women's professional hockey, although you're talking about a really small base. And for us in the research world, we always have to be careful that, when we look at data, we're not looking at data just driven by a small base or, a small sample size.
Mhm.
You know, NFL, giant sample size.
Right.
WNBA, good size sample. So, we're always making sure to when we make our, our predictions or our proclamations or our opinions, that we're not just, just looking at the most number of people or the largest base. We're looking at a variety of different data points in order to make our point.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Anything we have to do.
Now, I know that we were touching on sports betting a little bit.
Sure.
How do you see that how sports betting has evolved from the times that you were growing up until now? And do you think that it's sports just in general has changed for the better or for the worse in regards to all this legislation being passed with
Yeah.
sports?
Better or worse is a tough question sometimes for me to answer, but let me just kind of go back. So, as few as 4 years ago, the local bookie represented about 25% of where gamblers went to make, to place bets. Now it's under 5%. So, you're looking at a situation where online gambling, online sports gambling has just, really changed the landscape a great deal. No question about it. I think right now there's about 29, I want to say 29 states where online gambling is, now up and running and operational. I think there's another 5 or 6 more planned for this year. Of course, when California and Texas come online, that's going to be a big lift because you're talking about 2 states with just incredibly large sports fan bases, large number of teams, large number of bettors. I mean, that'll be, that'll look like what New York looked like when it came online about 2.5, 3 years ago. So, but I think the biggest thing is, number one, is the death of the local bookie. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, God, luckily my dad won't ever hear this, but my dad used to place bets with this barber. I even remember when I was in college, look, I've done my share of sports gambling over the years. There was a local pizza place where I went to school, and that's where, we placed our bets. But, no more. I mean, now it's, legalized sports gambling has, kind of brought it into the light. Whether you're doing it via the online platforms, whether you're using DraftKings or, oh God, I forget.
FanDuel,
DraftKings. Thank you.
Yeah.
BetMGM or any of the others. Yeah. But look, there's also a number of sports where they only have what they call brick and mortar locations where online is not yet implemented. So, but again, it's become, sports gambling has changed the landscape for sports fans a great deal. Some for the better, some for the worse. I do have some concerns about what sports gambling is doing to the integrity of the game.
Yeah. I've seen. I know that's definitely been brought up, especially like the Calvin Ridley situation.
Yes.
The thing is though, with his, I mean, take it, with what you will, how you want, grain of salt, whatever. But I mean, he came out in the open and was like, "Hey, dude, like, I didn't even realize like." That's what it was. He's like, I never once went on my bet against my team, never bet on my team. Sure. It was on, other, he had his platform right here. Here are the tickets right here. I mean, that is also like kind of the beauty within today's having it at your fingertips, right? Is you do have the proof said like, hey, I wasn't against my team. Like Pete Rose. Pete Rose is, hey, it wasn't against my team. It was, that's what he said.
Well,
you take your word for it. But nowadays, if you do it at your fingertips,
it's easy. They've made it easy. I mean, look, everyone.
You got a receipt though to show, like, hey, I did. You know what I mean? Like, hey, take it for whatever you want. I did get suspended or whatever, but it wasn't against my team. It wasn't on who I was playing against or with.
But what's to prevent him from getting a proxy to place a bet for him? I'll tell you, one of the things that really concerns me when you're shaking your head.
That's the thing. I mean, anybody could do that though.
Mean,
before you even have it on your phone, so I mean, like that's just, I mean, that's just really kind of moving the goalposts right there. I mean, it's just, whether it's in a casino in Las Vegas and you have somebody that lives out there and does it for you, or a bookie where you live, or you do it on your phone and you have somebody else do it with their credentials. What's the difference?
Well, I think, with your phone, look, it's incredibly convenient. I mean, we all carry our smartphones now. a lot of the, your generation, not mine as much, they have their phone is attached to their left hand in a lot of cases. But here's an example though of what I was saying. Right now, college sports in particular are going through an incredible upheaval where college athletes are now able to be paid even outside of the quote NIL system. So, what happens now though, when a college kid, 20-year-old college kid who's, let's face it, they say that most adults, their brain hasn't been fully formed till we're like 24, 25 years of age. But, this college kid sees, one of his teammates, getting a ton of dough, whether it's directly from the university via NIL. And he says to himself, you know what? I want to get some of this money and I'm not getting some of this money. And, what would stop him? And I'm not saying this is happening, but it's hypothetical, from, from throwing a game or dropping a pass or, whatever it might be to create a situation, for, some type of irregularity when it comes to gambling. This is what concerns me, the integrity of the game.
And I don't blame you there. I think that has a worry for everybody, to be honest with you. But that I think that's kind of been going on for quite some time. But as big of a worry, I don't think so. I think now it's obviously a bigger worry, like you're saying. It's at the palm. It's in the palm of your hands. At your fingertips.
Underage gambling also is something. We do a large annual study of sports fandom. We interview over 7,000 sports fans nationwide, and it's I can get into the science, but that's boring even for me. So, but the point is, here's the big point though: 3%. Now, it might not say, oh, it's only 3%, but it's just south of 1 million people underage and are gambling on sports. So almost 1 million people, kids, well, I'll use the word kids because they are kids when you're 13 to 17, are placing bets somehow on online gambling. Either they've got, fake IDs, or they've got some other method, their mom and dad's credit card, or they've got some other method in order to be able to do this. And quite frankly, underage gambling does concern me. And I would like to see the gambling companies do more, I think, to kind of, let's say, negatively reinforce, gambling but again, look, they're here to make money. I get it. I'm a capitalist too. But, I do think it's a situation that the gambling companies really need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge concern of mine. Kids getting involved with sports betting. I think that's terrible. What do you think that we could do differently, as a society? I know you were talking about, more negative reinforcement. Do we also need to show less advertisements or?
I think part of the problem is, and I know, by the way, there are some active studies being conducted right now, but the way that sports gambling companies are advertising, I think really, again, I talked a little bit about, the typical adult, their brain isn't fully developed. They're 24, 25 years of age. And, again, I'm getting a little sciencey, but I think the way that these sports gambling companies advertise really does encourage a lot of young people, underage people, to place a bet. When you hear, hey, we'll, put $100 in your account and we'll double it, and,
right.
The idea of free money scares me because, again, I don't think that the average 17-year-old really understands the implications of free money. And, and again, I think that, but, do I see the gambling companies, changing their strategies soon? Probably not. Do I see them, having these long disclaimers and things at the bottom? And, if you have a gambling problem, call, Gambling Anonymous or, some 800 number or whatever it is. Sure, they're going to continue to do that. I just don't think that's going to necessarily curb the problem. I do think there is a problem. Does it fall back on the parents? Maybe in some cases. Does it fall back? Look, I guess we're all at the end of the day responsible for our own actions. And I subscribe to that. I definitely do.
Yeah.
I totally agree. With me having little ones and growing up, it just makes me wonder how this could affect them later on. I know, like myself, I don't really partake too much.
Okay.
It also like so I'm from Missouri, so like we don't turn on until December 1st. We're not as big of an area, but I mean, the thing at the end of the day though is there are people here that do enjoy it. I mean, we are a long ways away from Vegas, but we're just around the corner away from Kansas,
Yep.
Illinois,
Yep.
Oklahoma.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But that also makes it difficult, like myself, or people that don't have the ability to always go, pick up when they want to, make the, place and stuff. So it does make it a little bit more accessible for when they do turn it on. But I don't have really a problem with it. So I'm just like, I don't see that if I don't show that to mine, I don't see that being an issue.
How old are your children? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, they're young.
Okay. So let's just hypothetically say when they're 17, 18 years of age, and let's say, I don't know, one of them wants to go to the University of Colorado. And the reason why I'm singling out University of Colorado is because the situation does exist at the University of Colorado, where they have actually put kiosks in their football stadium where you can place a bet. Now, They claim to have put all these interesting safeguards in there, but not a day goes by where I don't read a story about a college-age kid who has gambled away, some cases,
right.
Gambled away his spending money, gambled away tuition money, charged $5,000 on his, parents' credit card. I mean, not a day goes by or a week goes by where I don't hear about those stories. Again, are we accountable for our actions? Of course. Hey, I had a roommate in college, and this is a long time ago, that got in trouble, bet way over his head and got in trouble with the local bookmaker. And his dad had to come up, write a big fat check to the bookie, and basically took him out of school. And, so I do think, I just think there's so many implications that are tied to sports gambling. And now that it's so convenient, another thing that's kind of interesting is how the teams are actually, in some way supporting this. I have some connections with some of the companies who build stadiums, and they've used our data. Wow. And in fact, on a previous podcast that I used to do, we interviewed project managers from a couple of new stadiums like SoFi out in Los Angeles, Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, a number of other stadiums. And they were saying that, when they designed these stadiums, they were designed to, let's say, with Wi-Fi nodes that, let's say, supported 400 or 500 people per node. He says, now we've got to design these stadiums that support 200 people per node. So you're talking about twice as much equipment that has to go into these stadiums in order to accommodate, sports gambling, fantasy sports. We didn't even talk about fantasy sports.
Right. Yeah, we're going to dive into that. I want to bring on Southgate. He's a Not Move podcast member. He's really interested in this topic. He's got a bunch of questions to ask you as well. I'm sorry, just to he's seen the feed and was like, man, I gotta ask him some stuff. So further ado, Southgate.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, nice to see you.
I'm 50 years old, and the underage. I've been gambling since I'm 12 years old. At 12 years old, I got my first bookie, in New York City. So I understand by 15, I was paying vig. My whole weekly paycheck went to vig. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And they knew exactly what they were doing when they put the FanDuel Casino right next to the Meadowlands Stadium.
You bet.
I mean, 100% on that. But the underage gambling has been going on forever. I was gambling in Atlantic City at 15 with a birth certificate. So,
man.
I mean, that I don't see how they're ever going to stop that.
Well, I don't think you can stop all of it. I think you're right about that. Let me ask you a question, Southgate. Do you have children by any chance?
I have 5 children.
Wow. Are any of them college age?
Yes.
So
4 of them are, but all 4 of them are girls.
Has any of them, just out of curiosity, do you think any of them are gambling on sports?
No, they're all girls, so I got lucky that way. But I mean,
don't be so sure, because girls are starting to gamble more and more on sports too. But you're right, though.
No, but my daughters have. I mean, besides watching the Super Bowl just for the party, they have no interest in sports or gambling.
Sure.
But me, I mean, my whole life I was around gambling. I mean,
Right.
at 10 years old, my mother had me in Thanksgiving Day AC/DC games. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
I
do.
mean, I've been around gambling my whole life, so I understand exactly where you're talking from. I just want to ask you a question about
Sure.
how these casinos are always trying to take an edge. Are you familiar with the Phil Ivey story?
I'm actually not.
Okay, he made a deposit to the Bellagio and a casino in London, and he made a $10 million deposit into both casinos. He said he
Right.
wanted to play Baccarat. He said that he wanted an Asian-speaking dealer. He said he told them the woman that he was going to bring with them, who was actually banned from casinos, and the lady had a way of reading the back of the cards to know
What?
to know what the next card was coming. So you
Wow.
ever see the cards with the circles on them on the back?
Yeah, casino gambling's not really my area of expertise, but I think I know what I have gambled in
Well,
a casino.
anyway, he ended up winning in both casinos. One casino paid him out, and the Bellagio didn't. And they actually won in court and got their money back after they signed off to all his agreements.
Wow.
And this is another thing I find funny about FanDuel is somebody just hit an 8-team $5
Like a
home run
parlay?
parlay
Whoa.
for $100,000.
Ho.
And he put it on his Discord, and there were a bunch of other people that got it. So FanDuel had to pay out $2.2 million.
Yes.
So the next day, when you logged into your FanDuel account, they had a new disclaimer that said, if you're doing anything as a group, we have the right not to pay you.
Yep.
But that's kind of strange to me, because when you go on FanDuel, they offer you parlays that they make up for you.
They do.
Like Gronk's hot parlay or something like that. So that's kind of like
Contradicting themselves.
A little
Yeah.
bit. Little
Fair
bit.
weather and pay when they want.
It's
and when
interesting
they
too.
don't want.
I don't know if you followed along, I guess a couple of years ago with the GameStop situation with the stock. Now, obviously, we're talking about completely different apples and oranges here, but again, the group mentality of, hey, here's a great idea, buy this stock, and then he puts it out on a Discord server, or he puts it out on, some other social media or a Reddit. In this case, it was Reddit. And all of a sudden, the stock gets pumped and then it gets dumped, and then the company ends up in Chapter 11. Yep. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I think, interesting little nuances that are going to come up. And, I think that these sports gambling companies have to look leery of this. I mean, they're in money. They're in business to make money. Make no mistake.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, they'll take the money until it's time to pay it out.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, look, obviously the interesting thing is, though, Southgate, is that you very rarely see a casino going out of business. I could probably name, I could probably put it on one hand, but, the casino, there's a reason why these guys, win more than they lose. I mean, I am always amazed, by the way, when I look at point spreads, and obviously I pay attention to that kind of thing, how close these guys are on these point spreads, how close they are on the under over. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been sweating out the under over, with a minute to go in a game. And, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, look, and they use a lot of data. I will tell you that. These guys are running some very sophisticated algorithms and using very sophisticated data, and really have some, data scientists that are really putting a lot of science into this. So, I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, no. It's amazing how close Vegas gets the spread most of the time. I say 90% of the time. It's absolutely amazing.
I know
it is.
Now, do you think that's done by people or computers?
Well, it used to be done by people for sure, but now it's all done by computers. I mean, when you look at a sports gambling company, online or even a brick and mortar, I mean, in my opinion, they're no different than a hedge fund. A hedge fund, is typically built to be able to, I mean, just by the nature of a hedge fund, they're built to play both sides, but hopefully the side that they bet more on is the one that's going to come out on top, but they hedge their bets in case it goes the other way.
Yeah.
So, and that's just like what online casino, whether it's a hedge fund or an online casino or a brick and mortar casino. I mean, right now it's all being done. They're heavily involved in machine learning and AI and allowing the computers to, I hate to say it, do a lot of their thinking for them.
Yeah. I mean, we see what happened when they opened up gambling in New York City.
Oh boy, did we ever! I think it's going to be
broke
real
every
interesting.
record Vegas had.
I mean, I do work with sports gambling companies, and we talk a lot about it. And look, they've done an amazing job also of being able to claim the low-hanging fruit of sports gamblers. Right now, though, as more states come online, they're still going to be able to continue to grow. I have challenged some sports gambling people and said, what's going to happen when there are no more states? There's never going to be 50, probably 49. Utah may never approve online sports gambling.
I agree with that.
So, when all the states, in Texas and California, and there's no more low-hanging fruit, what are they going to do? Are they going to keep offering more and more money, as a way to entice people to gamble? Well, that's going to affect more and more young people, and it's going to be kind of a, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I mean, because I got to tell you, I mean, they get me all the time when I see the 50% bonus match up to $1,000. I mean, why aren't you going to take the free money and deposit if I'm going to gamble it anyway?
Yep.
Right.
They know it. They know it.
Yeah.
They know it. They know it. They know exactly what you're going to do.
Yep.
So, Neil, I know that one of your primary focuses is on sports fandom.
Yes.
How much of a surge since sports betting has become legal here have you seen in sports fandom? And do you think that the sports fans nowadays are really interested in the game anymore? Or are they more so interested in the gambling aspect of it?
Well, here's what's happening. So when you talk to teams and even leagues, the one term that constantly comes up is this term sports fan engagement. We want to increase engagement.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Well, sports gambling is certainly one way to be able to increase engagement because let's face it, you put a bet, you're engaged. You're watching on traditional TV. Maybe you're watching via streaming, or maybe you're at the game. So they have really been able to leverage changing technology really well, especially streaming, because that really has been the catalyst for a lot of growth, not just among sports gambling, but among sports fandom growth in general. We are seeing in some cases attendance just not doing as well. While you're seeing maybe the same number of people that go to games, you're not seeing, let's say, the guy that used to go to 2 or 3 games or 5 games a year, he may only be going to 1 game now because it's gotten very expensive. So, how do organizations that are involved in focused on sports fans handle it? Well, they handle it by doing, sports gambling and by using streaming. And that's really what they've done. They've done an amazing job of working with streaming. Sorry about that ring. That was my wife, by the way. They've done an amazing job of not just gambling. They've done an amazing job of focusing on social media. Again, all designed to increase one thing: engagement, because that's how they make their money. Remember, they're not making their money on sports betting. They're making their money on sports sponsorship. And they're making their money on, stadium naming rights, and they're making their money on all of these types of things. So, yes, gambling is gone a long way to grow engagement among sports fans. No question about it.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think that it'll get to a point where gambling gets so big or so bad that they'll stop the advertisement like they did for smoking or something like that? Like how you can't advertise for cigarettes?
It's an interesting question, actually. It's an interesting question. Look, I mean, there's, infringing on people's rights. I'm not sure we have a right to gamble on sports, but I'm not sure we don't have a right to gamble on sports. And look, and the one thing that always concerns me is that people need to be allowed to make their own choices, but they also need to be able to make their own informed choices. So, you know what, Southgate, that is a really tough question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I always wondered that.
Do I think that, let's say all of a sudden underage sports gambling got out of control? The answer is yes. I think they would have to put some guardrails up. Do I think they're going to stop them from advertising like, cigarettes? Sports gambling doesn't really kill anybody. At least I don't think it has. But
well, maybe
but
in
it
the
has.
70s
it could be the cause of.
Maybe in the
Look,
70s.
DraftKings is not coming out and sending around a guy, Vito and Guido to collect their bets. I mean,
Well,
luckily
believe me,
got,
I've seen a couple of Vito the Guidos in my day.
I'm sure.
So yeah, man. The way the world has evolved with technology and gambling,
Yeah.
like you said, I didn't even think about it about getting you interactive and engaging with the sport, and that's why views are up. And I mean, you look at this, okay. I listen to podcasts while I'm at work, and I kind of take note, and like I said, we're learning and everything like that. We're new, but dude, the preseason games and viewership this year was up. I mean, tremendously due to sports gambling, due to this app on your phone that helped everybody. Nobody pays attention to the preseason games until the last couple of years.
It's not just
You know
the
what I
app on
mean?
your phone. It's the way you can now use money, credit cards. That's it. They work hand in hand. It's not just the fact that there's an app on your phone, because look, you still have to deposit that money. You still have to have a mechanism in order to do that. And
Right.
what's the mechanism? Credit cards.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Listen,
When they got the Bitcoin thing came out. That
Oh, yeah, no
that
question.
kind of currency is just as, if not worse.
I mean, I did the other night. I deposited $100 on the BetMGM. I hit a 3-guy home run parlay for $2,500. I withdrew it. It was on my credit card in an hour.
That's great. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work. There's no question.
Yep.
No question about it.
No,
the one thing that interesting is, and I've done some studies on this, we've looked at our data. One of the things we've also found is that people who play fantasy, in a lot of ways, are fantasy sports is actually the gateway to sports gambling.
Yes.
People play fantasy sports generally as their first they dip their toe in the water with fantasy sports. Yep. And after they kind of get a feel for that, then they say, you know what, I want a little bit more action. I want a little bit more juice, and I want a little bit more. I want to pay a little bit more. And they up their game into sports gambling. The funny thing is, though, how many of you, I'm sure I know the answer to this question. I'm sure you've all bet on the 100 square pools for the Final Four. I mean,
the boxes.
The boxes in the end.
Never
that's
been
gambling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Neil, it's something funny you say. They have the saying, birds of a feather flock together. So obviously, me and my friends all grew up. We were all gamblers. Atlantic City every weekend, betting sports, even when it wasn't legal. And to be honest with you, we all got so out of control that instead of losing $5,000 to $10,000 a weekend, we started a $10,000 league fantasy team.
Right.
And that actually stopped us from gambling.
Really?
Because it gave us the action every Sunday.
Really?
Without having to place a bet. Because we had things to watch the game and root for.
Mm-hmm.
Because we did $2,500 a week for High Points.
Wow.
So that actually, I see how what you're talking about, how it could be a gateway with the DraftKings. But if you're doing one with your friends, it actually stopped me for a couple of years.
Interesting. Where are you from originally, by the way, Southgate? Sound like you're from the New York area.
I'm from Brooklyn originally. I live in Staten Island now.
My wife's a Brooklyner, so I recognize that accent.
Yeah, that's why I told you. I mean, when I was 12 years old, my friend's father was handing me a line. I mean, so
I remember my first entry into sports gambling was, remember the old parlay sheets? The
Yeah. You pick
remember those? That was my first entry into it.
Oh,
My
man,
dad used to say, "Hey, which teams do you think you're going to win this week?" And blah blah blah. And I'd circle 4 teams, 5 teams, and all that. And
Yeah, and you hold on to the numbers.
Yeah.
I was actually still able to get access to those up until about 6-7 years ago.
Wow, I didn't even know they were doing that anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the things they still do. But I tell you,
oh, we lost him. I guess he's driving around somewhere.
Yeah. Well, hey Neil, just wanted to ask you real quick too, if you don't mind, what's been your favorite part about your journey working in the sports field? What brought you into it?
That's a really good question, because I answer it with 3 simple words. Now, let me just preface this for a second. My friends all say, Neil, just answer the question. You always have a runway to the answer. Well, I got another runway. So again, I've been in the sports business a lot, and I've been able to work, with a lot of great people, a lot of great companies, a lot of great situations. But the one thing is that now I'm in the sports data business. We sell a lot of data to universities and colleges that they use to help students understand how to do data analytics and how to use data. So a lot of times I'm in class, and a lot of times a student will ask me about the sports business, and I always tell them the same thing. I love sports because sports are fun. And if you can't have fun talking about sports, working in the sports business and all that, go find something else to do. Yeah. Because there is nothing. I mean, I can't tell you how much fun I had talking about the Kansas City Chiefs overtaking the Dallas Cowboys as America's team, with the number one. The Kansas City Chiefs now have more fans around the country than the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. I'm from Philadelphia originally. That whole America's team used to drive me nuts.
Yeah.
But now it's the Kansas City Chiefs, and we don't know why. Number one, obviously, winning Super Bowl has been great, but let's face it, it's all about the Taylor Swift situation. How have the Kansas City Chiefs grown their fan base? One, with women, but also with young people. So now all of a sudden, I hate to say it, they changed the game. They changed the landscape. Good for them. I just like having to not say that. I just like saying that Dallas Cowboys are no longer America's team. But again, it's fun. I love sports. They're fun. So
bettors is
that's my story.
Dallas fan.
Dallas Cowboys.
Sorry about that. They lost last night.
Cowboys is America's team.
Hey, I had them winning last night.
Did they cover last night at least?
No,
they did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they
covered. Dallas
covered. Oh, it was Philly that didn't. Philly did.
Yeah, Dallas covered.
Yeah, Dallas did. Yeah, that's right.
I'm a Philly guy. I would have bet on Philly. I bet too much with my heart, not enough with my head.
Yeah, it's usually a big number.
Yeah,
right, guys.
My problem is.
Any other questions here for Neil, or I think I'm about done.
Hey, if anybody wants to reach out to me, it's neil@sbrnet.com. My website, sbrnet.com, and you can get on there and learn a little bit about us. As I said at the top of the show, my podcast, I have a podcast. It's called My First Job in Sports, where I talk to people who are new to the sports business and how they got their jobs. So, really, I am immersed in the world of sports.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Neil. I'll
definitely
be tuning into your podcast.
I think Southgate wants to have the last word.
Yeah, actually, Neil, I'm sorry to ask you a question. What would be the route to get up into the FanDuel business or something like that? Besides applying for a job, but
there are a lot of jobs. I will tell you, there are a lot of jobs among the sports gambling companies right now. They are actively hiring. I will say one thing: the sports gambling business does tend to churn through people a little faster than other aspects of the sports on the business side of sports. No question about it. But the real thing, I think, Southgate, is that having a really good understanding of data and how data fits in to the acquisition of more sports gamblers, how data fits into how they calculate lines, how they figure out what are the best parlays, what day of the week is the best way to implement certain strategies. It's all
Where the
data
wind's blowing
driven.
and everything. Yeah.
All data driven. Understand how to use the data. That's really the key.
So sports gambling has pretty much come down to all analytics.
Pretty much. Guys, thank you very much for having me on. And
Thank you.
you'll have a great weekend.
You
I
as well,
really
Neil. Thank you.
appreciated this. Thank you,
Thanks
Neil.
for tuning in to
Bye-bye.
the Move
Thank you.
Podcast.